Found some videos on teachers union. Might be a little wake-up call for you. Now, like I say, I was in school. I had the school experience. Really, I was fairly intelligent, and anytime something really wrong was going on in school, and I tried to get my parents, to support me, they would always say the school wouldn't lie. Oh, the school wouldn't do that. That would be a conspiracy theory. I had that experience when I was, in grade school, and yet nobody believed me. But thank God we're starting to see the truth come out now. But I was a student and seeing our school system is really, really screwed up. It will teach you how to be dumb. You will fail. If you're smart, you will fail in school. If you're dumb, you'll get high marks. If you can be programmed, if you're easily manipulated, you'll get really, really high grades. So that's why anybody that's been programmed and brainwashed and extremely successful in our education system, they would be the ones that don't believe in themselves. They would be the ones that are so detached from source. They are so lost. They can be programmed and made to believe just about anything. So you're actually kind of dumb. But then I had kids in the school system. And this is in Canmore, Alberta, right next to Banff, Alberta. And my son came home with a very bad bruise. My kids don't bruise. And he came home with a bruise that was literally red and black. I have never in my life ever seen a bruise that bad, let alone on my own children. And there were fingerprints. You could actually see 5 fingers that were red and black. And so I was like, right away, I went to the school with that one. What the hell are you touching my kid like that for? And it was all about a teacher handing out candy to children and making, first of all, my son was so brilliant, and they didn't want him in the classroom, so they put him in the learning center where they didn't bother teaching these kids anything. That's where the brilliant kids were, and no teacher would actually be there. I tried to talk with the school system to see, what the hell are you doing with my child? Are you teaching him anything? Have you even decided to open up a book yet? And all the time, there was nothing. They would literally let these kids sit in that classroom and do nothing, basically. But this one time they ended up having this contest, a math contest of like, what's 0 plus 0, and one of the kids got the answer to that one, where the other team got really, really challenging questions. So, and they were given candy as a reward, and my son just thought that was so wrong. And while he was trying to make his point about it being wrong, the teacher didn't really like it. So when he always had an objection of whatever was going wrong within the school system, his anger might have gotten a little bit out of control. So you know what? They all decided that, why don't you go out in the hall room and just calm yourself down? Anytime you get upset with what the teachers are doing, just walk yourself out into the hallway and just take a breath. Which my son, who's not unrealistic, never had any behavior problems, nothing, just kind of said, hey, this is wrong. And maybe his voice got a little loud when he was saying it was wrong and the teachers didn't like it. So he was objective of that. It was not going well. So he said, I'm going out in the hallway. And the teacher grabbed his arm and said, no, you're not. You're staying here, and you're going to do what I'm telling you to do. And it's like, the whole system, we already had meetings. We've discovered the solution to the problem, that if my son ever gets upset, he's entitled to go for a time out in the hallroom, in the hallway. And the teacher wouldn't even let him have a time out. And he was the kid that was having enough control to put himself out in a timeout because he was really pissed off with the behavior of this teacher. And this teacher bruised him that bad. Like, as soon as she started grabbing him, that's when he wanted to get away even more, causing the bruise. So she thinks that he caused his own bruise. So, anyways, it was very abusive. A lot of people didn't know what was going on. My son was definitely well behaved at that particular time. If I was in his shoes, I would do the exact same thing. And I hope to God anybody else would do the same thing. That if you see something wrong, you have the right to open up your mouth. And if you're a child that's really, really upset with something you see is wrong, I do think that you should take a break. I think you should be able to breathe and calm yourself down. I think that's logical. And not to mention that everybody agreed with it. You can't agree with something and then just disagree with it and think that a child is the one that's responsible for, adult behaviors. Anyways, it started to get really covered up. When I went to the principal said, that didn't happen in my school. If that happened in my school, that would be against the law. Those were the words of the principal. So he says, well, that didn't happen here. And yet it did. And the teacher admitted to it. Everybody admitted to doing it, but nobody was disciplined. They all were trying to say that it was my son's fault, that something was really wrong. They were now going to do even more harm to my son because they were trying to discipline for him doing this himself. And I had big issues with it, and the whole school. I was going to meetings about the whole school system was having problems with discipline within the school structure. Parents were really, really pissed off with the school and not knowing why. So I ended up bringing this up and making a lot more public about how abusive the teachers were. I had done a little bit of a protest with a sign saying there was an abuser in the school, and the kids were saying, which one? There were so many, and there was some sexual abuse going on in that school that came out. Huge, huge abuse that was all covered up. And guess what? The teachers' union came at me and said that if I said anything, I'd be sued. So the teachers' union, the union that says teachers are allowed to abuse kids, you're not allowed to talk about it, otherwise you will have the force of all of this union coming at you. And, I was living in poverty at the time. What the hell are you going to do? Sue me for everything I got? But that's how they keep society in place, is their union. They got tons of money, and they will keep your mouth shut. If you see abuse in the school, these people aren't scared to sue you. And let's face it, you got to have as much money as they have to win anything in court. If you can't afford a lawyer, you can't afford time off work, guess what? The one with the most money is the one that's winning all the time. So then what happened is they put out newsletters to every single parent in the whole entire school system saying that my son was never abused and that he was making up the whole story. Can you imagine? Can you imagine getting letters sent out that the abuse didn't happen? All done by a teachers' union. Canmore, Alberta, Canada. And I even went into mediation meetings where they all agreed, yes, this happened, but we're not allowed to talk about it. So what I did is I did go to these meetings. I kept the tape recording because I recorded it. And I kept the paperwork that says you all agreed to that happened, the superintendent. But in public, the superintendent denied that it ever happened. and this is our psychiatric world. It really, really pissed me off to know how corrupt and how abusive, physically abusive, sexually abusive our teachers are to our kids. That I kept that paperwork. It drove me crazy. It took a long time for me to get over, and psychologically, counselors were saying, get rid of that paper. And it's like, no, I ain't getting rid of that. That is history. That is proof. One day, we're going to need this paperwork. So I'm pretty sure, I know that I've lost a lot of things over the time, but that's one piece of paper. That's one piece of evidence that I chose to keep. And look at today. We can kind of use a little bit of information on how bad things are. So there you go. Canmore, Alberta. Your school system is extremely abusive, and you got superintendents and teachers union making sure that your children in your area are being abused. Nobody did a damn thing to fix that little problem. Drove me out of town. But anyways, I'm putting some links to some other examples of how abusive some of these videos are. Teachers gone wild. You'll be really surprised at what's going on. So, while I see the police, which I will give you a lot of stories about police, that police are not there to protect citizens. They're there to protect criminals. Look at the G20. You know, they are not there for the public. They are not there to protect you. They are there to protect criminals, the criminals that have the money that are stealing from everybody. So, you know, a criminal will have a nice car. They look like, you know, they're thugs. They drive big cars. They have big houses, and that's who the police work for, is everybody that has the most money. So, you know, if these people steal your money, then you look like you're in poverty. You look like you're on a welfare system. You know, it's the people that stole everything from me. Where are the police? How come none of these crimes are ever enforced? Because they're known to be victimless crimes. So, it's really interesting to watch in Wisconsin that the police and teachers are trying to protest to have the right thing done for society. And who's on the other side of the battle? A politician that's being funded by criminals. So it's like the criminals are fighting the criminals right now. And somehow we think, you know, one of these criminals is going to get their way. It's like, get rid of all of them. They're all wrong. And I sure as hell hope that everybody can see that whoever wins in that fight, you lost. Because both sides of those are dead wrong. Dead wrong. The only way you're ever going to find out what's right is you get rid of that corporate structure that's funding these politicians. Get rid of that. So that means the rich guys are unemployed. Don't think that one's going to happen. And you get rid of these unions. Because these unions have gone so powerful, so far to the extreme, they've no longer done what's the right thing. They turned into their enemy. Like I said, if you have enough hate, you'll turn into your enemy, and that's one of the prime examples. Unions started to be something that tried to make something fair over that corporate structure, but they ended up hating the corporate structure so much that they turned into it. So you got to get everybody that works and profits off unions to lose their jobs. That ain't going to happen either. They're not going to just step down and say, okay, I retire. I think it's a bad thing to get involved in a union. That ain't going to happen. So can you see our insanity right now is the ones that are making the money right now are the ones that actually have to stop working. You know, there's no way that they're going to take their money and put it into something that's good. We need better education systems, not to program you what to think, but more on how to think, how to use your brain, how to make a good decision. Not, this is the good decision, taught by somebody that doesn't know how to make a good decision. That's where you're going to learn how to be a psychopath. I mean, most of these social behaviors that we think are really, really bad, and they wonder where did it come from. Your friggin' school system. Not by parents. It's the school system. Parents just learned from the school system. So yeah, they are kind of guilty, but we got to get rid of the insanity first, but you just got to recognize the insanity. So anyways, I'll put some links below so you can take a look at some teachers gone wild. But remember, Canmore, Alberta, Canada corrupts education system. You want your kids abused, put them in that school system in that town. That's Banff, that's Ackshot. The whole district is totally corrupt. Nobody has an interest in fixing it, and trust. That little problem probably escalated, not decreased, after I left town. Peace out.